Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very special and important guest on my show today. He's one of the unsung heroes in action movies. I'm talking about the one and only Sheldon Lettich. How you doing, Sheldon?
Good, good. It's Lettich, by the way.
Lettish. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's a
A
very
lot of people make that mistake. Yeah,
it's a very exotic last name. Where does it come from?
Eastern Europe.
Ukraine,
Right, right around there.
Belarus.
No, no, like you used to be called Yugoslavia. Actually, it's Bukovina. Okay, so which is now part of Ukraine.
Okay, okay. See, I didn't know. I just learned a history lesson now. He does not only does he direct, but he also teaches history. So, Sheldon, how did you get your start in the entertainment business?
Well, I got my start. I went to the American Film Institute and studied cinematography. And then I started writing screenplays. And people started hiring me to write screenplays. So one thing led to another.
Okay, so you did several spec scripts. I heard you did something for Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell.
Actually, yeah, I did. I worked on a draft of the XYZ murders, which ended up being called Crime Wave. They got then Joel and Ethan Cohen did a rewrite on top of mine, and then I also worked on the movie that ended up being called Army of Darkness, which was originally Evil Dead 1300 AD. So I worked on that, and then there were a few other ones that I came close to making. But I've known Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell for a long, long time.
Sam Raimi is a great filmmaker, and also Bruce Campbell too. They do great work just like you. But there's a reason why I called. Oh shit! Sorry, my camera's dying. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the snafu, but let's start again. Sheldon Lettich. Okay, it's a very exotic last name. I don't have the same issue when I pronounce my last name. It's very easy. Sheldon, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for spending time with my audience. So let's get this let's get this show on the road. So you were working with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, that was a number of years ago. The first time they came out to L.A., they actually stayed in my apartment. I was introduced to them by a mutual friend named Josh Becker, who's also made low-budget movies with them back in Detroit, back when they were all in high school.
Nice, nice. And you did a spec script with them, and the spec script turned into Evil Dead, right?
That wasn't a spec, actually. That was Sam Raimi had written a treatment for an Evil Dead sequel, which took place in the Middle Ages. It was Evil Dead 1300 AD. So he hired me to write a screenplay based upon his treatment, and then he and his brother Ivan rewrote my screenplay, and that's what ended up being Army of Darkness.
So before we were cut off by the power situation, remember, guys, I told you he's an unsung hero, and the reason why I say he's an unsung hero because he wrote the script for Rambo 3, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And he also was a screenwriter for Bloodsport, one of the best damn action movies in the planet. So, what was it like for you to work on the Rambo 3 script?
Well, it was a good experience for me. Stallone was looking for a writer to co-write Rambo 3, and I had written a spec screenplay called Firebase, which is a Vietnam-based story. And he read that, liked it quite a bit, and to his credit, he decided, I'm going to hire somebody to co-write the script with me who's an actual veteran. So I worked on that script with him, and overall, it was a very positive experience. I just hit it off with Stallone. I hit it off with guys like Stallone and Van Damme. Not everybody in the world gets along with either of them, but I did, and it was a good experience all around.
Well, some some personalities takes a little bit time to get used to, like a acquired taste. It's like eating grapefruit for the first time. You don't like it at first, but then once you get used to it, you don't care anymore.
With Stallone and Van Damme, we just hit it off right from the beginning, from the first time I met them.
Okay. Did Van Damme do like the Van Damme dance for you at least once?
Van Damme. I've seen him do a Van Damme dance, but we've been to nightclubs and discos and things like that. So yeah, I've seen him do the Van Damme dance like he does in Kickboxer.
Nice, man. So tell me about the production behind the Bloodsport. I really love that. I have it on DVD. I watch it religiously. It's a great action, and the reason why I love it so much is because the action movies that they're making today, they just don't make any sense anymore, and they're not fun to watch.
Well, the action movies that they're making today, for the most part, um, the actors are not doing the actual action like they were in Bloodsport. And Van Damme does all of that stuff. There's no stunt doubles. There's nobody standing in for him. And in a lot of the action movies today, especially the superhero movies, you got people wearing masks. So the real actor is not doing all that stuff. You know, you don't have Robert Downey Jr. actually getting in a Iron Man suit and flying around. There's stunt people doing that. With Spider-Man, it's stunt people. But with these older action movies like Lionheart and Double Impact, that's Van Damme up there. You can see it's him. He's doing those moves. So that was a bit different back then. They've really changed quite a bit, and the cutting is a lot faster nowadays too. And one of the reasons they cut so fast is to disguise the fact that they've got stunt people standing in for the actors. We didn't do all those. In fact, I tried to go for some long takes with Van Damme and Mark Dacascos because you see, it's really him. Okay, we're not. There's no CGI. There's no special effects replacing his face. It's actually him doing all those moves, and they could do those moves like nobody else could.
So there's one thing I wanted to ask about also about Bloodsport was it true that the film was completed, everything was done in time, but then the guys at Canada decided to shelve for 2 to 3 years, and Van Damme himself decided to re-edit the movie himself? Is that rumor true or is it false?
Partially true. The owner of Canon Films, Menachem Golan, hated the movie, didn't like Van Damme, didn't think Van Damme was going to go anywhere. Because I tried to make another movie with Van Damme at Canon with Leon Isaac Kennedy. Do you remember Leon? Yeah. He was in those penitentiary films. So Leon and I had a script we wanted to do with Van Damme, and Canon liked the script. They liked me as a director, but they didn't want Van Damme to be in it. So they were going to shelve the movie. They didn't want to open it in theaters, and they only were convinced to give it a try to do some test screenings on the West Coast because there was a producer in France named Sami Hadida, a distributor, and he said, if you don't want to open that movie in theaters, let me buy it from you and I'll do it. Because Sammy had distributed No Retreat, No Surrender in France. Yeah.
That movie is amazing.
That movie was really Jean-Claude's audition for Bloodsport. Because when I wrote Bloodsport, we didn't have an actor in mind. So then the script was completed. Canon liked the script. They wanted to make the movie. And we threw around a number of names for the actor that was going to star in it. And Chuck Norris was too old at the time. He couldn't do it. We needed basically a Caucasian guy who could really do the martial arts moves, okay? Because we couldn't fake it. It was the Kumite. You were going to see this guy there the whole time. He wasn't going to have a mask or a hood on his head. So we had no doubles. And so Michael Dudikoff's name was floated by Canon. But Michael he's not a martial artist. He can't do this stuff. In those ninja movies, he had Sho Kosugi or Steve Lambert.
Steve, I'm friends with Steve online.
Huh? What's that?
I'm supposed to interview him too, Steve Lambert.
Oh, okay. So Steve Lambert was the guy in the ninja outfit, but it wasn't Michael Dudikoff. So we couldn't use him. We needed somebody who could really do this stuff. And then we happened upon Van Damme. Menachem ran into him, gave him the script, and we decided we're going to do the movie with this new guy, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
So then here's my second question regarding Bloodsport. Is it true Van Damme was really hired because he looks exactly like Frank Dukes, the man that's the Bloodsport is movie based on?
Absolutely 100% false. Okay. 100% false. Okay. The only person who says that Van Damme and Frank Dukes look alike is Frank Dukes himself. Okay, everybody else says, Frank, you're crazy. Okay, you don't look anything like him. Now, I made a little movie with Frank Dukes back in 1983 called Firefight. It's just been released on no, not Netflix. Oh crap, what's it called? No, it's no. What's the other one called? I'm not real adept with this stuff. Okay, but there's a blog site called Viking Samurai.
Oh yeah, I know about him.
Okay,
Everyone has, a lot of people in the community, unfortunately, has issues with Frank Duke.
right. Well, anyways, Viking Samurai put the this little film. The film is 17 minutes long. It's called Firefight. You can see it on what's that? It's like the YouTube. It's on YouTube. Okay, so you can see it on YouTube. And so now this is shot in 1983. This is just shortly before we cast Van Damme in the movie. Frank Dukes is pretty much the lead character in this little movie. You see him up there, okay? You can see his face, you can see his body. He looks nothing like Van Damme, all right? Nothing like him. And I was basically involved with making these decisions about who's going to star in Bloodsport. Nobody ever said, hey, let's get this guy Frank Dukes. He looks like... No, nobody ever said that. So Frank makes up a lot of stories. He just pulls stories out of thin air and makes up shit, okay? But he hasn't done... Not only does he not look like Van Damme, okay? There was no Kumite. He was never in a Kumite in the Bahamas or Hong Kong or anywhere. He did not participate in this. He's not a fighter. He knows some martial arts stuff. He's not a bad martial arts teacher, but he's not a fighter. He's never been in the ring.
In other words, he's full of shit.
Yeah, to put it politely, he's full of shit. I could put it other ways too, but he's full of shit, basically. So, yeah, and then he's got the nerve to put down other martial artists, like real ones, like Don Wilson, for example.
Yeah, I actually interviewed Don the Dragon Wilson.
Yeah, and Don's the real deal. Don's a real fighter. You can see video of him in the ring fighting, and he's won a lot of competitions. Frank Dukes claims that he's won 300 fights. He's never participated in any fights, okay? The only fight he was ever in that anybody has witnessed was when he had an altercation with Zane Frazier at a martial arts event, and Zane put him on the floor, okay, with one punch. Okay, so that's the extent of Frank Dukes' fight history. He's no fighter. He was not in the CIA. He was not in Vietnam. He did not win any medals for heroism. All made up, all bullshit.
He just told a lot of tall tales. Okay, so here's my other question I have to ask. Only the Strong Survive. That was a great movie when it came out. You had Mark Dacascos play the lead. Why did you guys choose to go with capoeira as the fighting style for the movie instead of just traditional martial arts like Kung Fu or Taekwondo or Karate or Muay Thai?
I have a very good answer for that one. Now, I originally came up with a story with a friend of mine named Luis Esteban, who's from this part of the country, actually. He's from New York City. Luis was a real martial artist, studied martial arts when he was a teenager. And he actually did what we depicted in Only the Strong. Luis actually was hired with getting the 12 worst kids in this one high school and teaching them martial arts. But what he taught them was karate, just regular, from Asia, that kind of karate. So we wrote this up in the little treatment, called it Only the Strong. Took place in New York City, and then Sammy Hadida, who was one of the producers on Double Impact and who was a very well-known distributor in France. Sammy came to me because he bought Double Impact for France. He said, can you write a martial arts movie that's centered on capoeira? Because I had been to an event in Paris with Sammy and with Jean-Claude called Budo Fest. And they had a capoeira demonstration there. And so Sammy was there, and Sammy was really captivated by capoeira, and he realized that there had never been a capoeira movie made. There's been bits and pieces of it in a few movies, but there was never a movie that was, especially an action movie, centered around capoeira. So he comes to me and asks me if I could put together a movie that deals with capoeira. And so Luis and I took the story that we concocted for New York City with, I think it was going to be Shotokan Karate, and changed it so that now it took place in Miami, and it was centered on capoeira. And so we basically came up with this. It was the same concept, basically get the 12 worst kids in this high school, teach them some martial arts, and hopefully you can turn their lives around, which was something that Luis had actually done in New York City many years earlier.
Okay, here's my other question. So how did you know Mark Dacascos was the right man for that lead movie, to star in that movie as the lead?
Mark had a manager at the time, and she'd gotten in touch with me beforehand and was basically pushing this new guy, Mark Dacascos, because I had done these Van Damme movies, and she basically introduced me to Mark and was hoping to find a way to get him into one of my movies. So I saw what Mark could do. He was acrobatic, and he actually happened to be taking capoeira lessons at that time. He was actually studying with Maestre Amen in Santa Monica. So it all just came together. The stars aligned, and so I had Mark come over to my house. We talked, and I watched him do some of his capoeira moves, and we realized let's go with somebody new, because other names were bandied about also, but none of them could really do the capoeira moves. And Mark was actually studying capoeira, so that's how he ended up getting cast. There was some nervousness about this because we had 20th Century Fox came in and wanted to distribute the movie and put half the budget up, and they were a little nervous also. They were saying, well, who's this guy? Can you do a screen test with him? So we shot a screen test on 35 millimeter film with Mark doing some acting scenes, doing some of his martial arts stuff. And then apparently the executives at Fox screened the test, and Rupert Murdoch happened to be walking by, and he said, hey, what are you guys looking at? Well, we're looking at this new guy, Mark Dacascos. Well, let me take a look at him. So Rupert Murdoch himself said, I like this kid, let's sign him. And not only that, now there was another set of coincidences too. 20th Century Fox had made a couple of movies with Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee,
Bruce Lee's kid.
yeah, tragically died. And so now 20th Century Fox is saying, oh shit, we don't have Brandon Lee anymore, okay? And his movies were doing good. And they realized Mark Dacascos looks like Brandon Lee in many ways, and he can do a lot of the same stuff. In fact, Mark even was a double for Brandon Lee in The Crow. After Brandon Lee died, and they reshot some scenes for The Crow, they used Mark Dacascos. So he was close enough to Brandon Lee to where the people at Fox were saying, you know what, let's sign this guy because he could become our next Brandon Lee. So there were basically a lot of factors were in play, and the stars were just aligned, and we ended up with Mark Dacascos in the movie.
Sheldon, you really made my day. I just got to say this. Thank you so much again for at least letting the fans out there what's going on, and you're a great action director. I hope you keep making more action movies.
Me too.
What's the next name of your latest project?
Well, I'm working on a couple of them that will hopefully go. One of them is called Fight Pride, and it's about mixed martial arts. It's kind of similar to Lionheart in many ways, and it's going to star a new guy named Daniel Stisson. And Daniel is in a new movie that just opened this weekend called The Siege. So that's actually playing in theaters and on streaming. And then I'm working on another one called Lioness, and that one will star the wife of Michael Jai White, whose name is Gillian White.
Oh yeah, I met her.
Yeah, and she will be the star of it, and Michael's going to be in it also. So we're hoping to shoot that sometime this year in Texas.
Nice, man. Nice. Well, Sheldon,
That'll be a perfect movie for the Urban Action Showcase, by the way.
but dude, you gotta be there at the show. You must have.
I want to be there. Okay, you guys just got to invite me. Okay,
I got the owner on speed dial.
you got the what?
Yeah, I got him on speed dial. The guy that runs it, Urban Shack, Demetrius.
Well, tell him to invite me next time.
You can talk to him right now. Let's see if he'll answer though. Call, leave a message, and
That's okay.
leave a message later.
Yeah, you tell them. Okay, begging to come to this thing, so they need to call me. Okay.
I know.
That's all right. Just get in touch with him and tell him I'd love to come out there. Okay.
All right, I'll text him right now. Sheldon, I have to thank you again, man. You're a great director. Keep kicking ass, taking no prisoners, man.
Okay.
And I hope the young guys that are trying to come up in this business, they can learn from you. Because honestly, martial arts action movies are so great.
Okay. Well, I'd be happy to make a few more myself, and hopefully I'll be making a couple of them this year.
All right. Cool.
What's your name again?
Omari.
Omari. Okay.
Yeah. Like I told you guys before, I always have the best guests on my program. And this man just exemplified that statement. Oh my gosh, man. Sheldon is great. He uncovered some unknown truths that a lot of people did not know about. And I have to thank him so much again. I hope to see him here next year at the Super Mega Collection Show. Sheldon, you're awesome. Keep kicking ass, taking no prisoners. All right, man?
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.